In the daytime, I'm Emily, just a normal girl with a normal life. But there's something about me that no one knows yet, cause I have a secret. Miraculous Season 3, gonna talk about it on Azura Media Club. That didn't really flow that well, but it's alright, cause it's the home of the Bad Girl Coven. I'm your Coven leader, Emily, and we're talking about Miraculous Ladybug Season 3. Let's do it. Okay, so, Miraculous Ladybug Season 3. A good season of Miraculous Ladybug. I don't think there's any season of Miraculous Ladybug that's a bad season, honestly. It pains me to say, but the worst season is Season 1. And I know I've said that before, but at the same time, you know, it only gets better. But at the same time, this season, I don't know if it's better than Season 2. I know what I just said, but looking at it, there's some high points and there's some low points. It evolves Ladybug in a good direction. But Season 2 is classic. And it really just ramps up everything from Season 1. There's so many iconic firsts in Season 2. And one of the one of the things about this season is the finale, which is a good finale, but it might be the weakest finale, if we're counting the two-part Hero Day, two-part, not Heroes Day, the Origins episode as the finale to Season 1. Otherwise, Volpina maybe is the weakest one. I definitely know that the Season 4 and 5 finales are way better than this one. But I also like the finale. We'll talk about that here in a bit. I want to lead up to that. The little teaser for you there. Overall, Season 3 is good, though, I think, of Ladybug. So, let's do the episode by episode like we always do. Oh, fuck. I'm in Season 4. I was scrolling through Season 4 to see all of the episodes. So, starting with Backwater, which is an episode where you find out that Master Fu was actually in love with this lady, Marion or something, isn't it, right? Something like that. Her name is very similar to Marinette, if I remember correctly. Anyway, he's in love with this lady. You see them in the past with the Miracle Box, and then you see them in the present, and they can't be together because Master Fu doesn't want her to be involved with the Miraculous and whatever, and be in danger from Hawkmoth. So he says at the beginning of the season there that they can only be together whenever Hawkmoth is defeated, which ends up not being the case, but we'll get to that here in a bit. Anyway, so this is kind of his plan for life after all the Miraculous business. And you know, they kind of keep avoiding saying that they love each other. But, you know, there's like this line like, say it when you get back or whatever. But it's like, you know, that's a long time to wait. Like, you shouldn't keep waiting. Anyway, the whole point of the whole plot of the episode is Marinette is writing these letters. She writes one for Adrian to tell him how she feels, even though him and Kagame are kind of getting to be a thing now. Which is why this episode should come later, as far as I'm concerned. I always thought Chameleon was episode 1. And that kind of made more sense with the whole Lila thing, since they only kind of used her last time. I mean, they did use her last time, you know what I mean. Anyway, so regardless of the order of this stuff, I'm just gonna read them in Wikipedia order, which I think was order of release, which is like all fucked up, and I'll try to explain that as we go along. But anyway, back order. So, also the Star Train is in this episode, which they don't introduce until later or whatever, right? I don't know. Or, like, episode the consistency, continuity of this series is so out of whack. But anyway, god damn it, I gotta just get to it. Back order. So Marinette's writing these letters. She writes a letter for Adrian, telling him how she feels. Marion writes a letter for Fu, or Fu writes a letter for Marion. Sorry. I don't remember her actual name, I'm just calling her Marion. Fu writes a letter for her, for Marion, gives it to Marinette to deliver, and also he's sick, so he needs this constipation medicine. So he also gives her the prescription for that, for her to go pick up. So she gives the prescription to Adrian, which is the funniest part at the end of the episode there. She gives the wrong letter, the one that she meant for Adrian, about how she shouldn't wait and blah 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 and all this stuff. And it makes it sound like she doesn't love, or Fu doesn't love her anymore. So she gets akumatized from that. And her power is to, like, reverse people when she touches them. Kind of like not Time Tagger. Well, sort of. Like Alex, whatever her akumatization was, from season 1. What the fuck was her thing? Anyway, kind of like that one, except, not really. So, her plan is to touch Ladybug and Cat Noir with enough rewind power to rewind them back to the Guardian, because Hawkmoth figures out, because of Marion, that the Guardian is in the town. And he kind of knew this from last season, I believe. He kind of was, like, figuring that out, or whatever. But this really confirms it. So, that's kind of his whole arc this season, is trying to find this Guardian, so that he can take all of the Miraculouses, and that's kind of what's in the finale there. That's, like, what's seeded throughout this season, is the running thread of that. So yeah, anyway, turns out she explains to them how she did the wrong letter to, Marion, and then Master Fu or whatever, and then Adrian gets her the constipation medicine at the end, and he's like, I was thinking about you all weekend, Marinette. The girls are all like, ooh, and then they look, like, what's in her hand, and Alia reads it, she's like, constipation medicine, and they start laughing, and Rose is like, what a pure sign of love, or whatever. It's like, oh my god, what the fuck. Did I even introduce myself in this thing? This is just a train wreck, isn't it? I'm your Coven Leader, Evelyn. Let's say that, 8 minutes into the video. So, yeah. So it's a pretty good episode. I like Back Order. It kind of sets up the Marion and Fu thing there. And, that's important for later, so that's good. I like that. And her power is interesting. It's kind of Hawkmoth figuring out about his next target, trying to get the Guardian and all of that. So yeah, pretty good. Episode 2, which is episode 6 on the production code there, which is what I watched them by. So episode 2, Where Dad, which is, an episode where Marinette's dad gets akumatized, because Marinette has to tell Cat Noir that she's in love with him, because Cat Noir, sees her transform back, or not transform back, but, she's always there whenever Ladybug is transforming back, basically. So she thinks that he's putting 2 and 2 together. He's like, could you be? And then she thinks he's gonna say, could you be Ladybug? But all he was gonna say was, could you be one of my fans? Which is, stupid. That's totally the fact that they haven't figured it out is just so whatever, you know. They don't want to figure it out at this point, you know. They're not supposed to know, you know, blah, 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 blah. So, but anyway, so, because of this, they invite Cat Noir over, because Marinette has to tell him that she's in love with him to cover the fact that she's Ladybug. And then she has all these complicated feelings about that. Especially because she knows that Cat Noir loves Ladybug. So, and she's like, well, what's his feelings for Ladybug worth if he'll just flip on a dime like that? But then Cat Noir comes over and says, you know, sorry, but I am in love with Ladybug, despite however much she rejects me and all this and blah, 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 blah. And Marinette pretends to be sad even though she's not. But her dad takes this as her being sad, and gets akumatized and turns into this giant werewolf guy that, like, makes this giant beanstalk, I guess. Like, it's kind of like a Jack and the Beanstalk thing. And, Marinette's at the center of it with, like, this rose flower thing, and she gets separated from Tiki, and it's like this whole thing of them just trying to find each other, and, like, Cat trying to figure out and fight Weird Dad a little bit and stuff. It's an alright episode. It is a decent episode for, like, the Miracat chip, or whatever, which is one that I like, that was an unpopular ship at the beginning of the show in season 1 there, but people came around to it in the end, so I actually do a lot with that in season 4 too, in the middle of the season there. But anyway, that's kind of nice, and it's kind of nice to see Marinette realize how much Cat Noir loves Ladybug from her perspective, I guess. I don't know. It's an alright episode. Pretty good. Chameleon, which is a Lila episode. So basically Lila comes back and she's like manipulating everyone. And the whole big thing about this episode is like her basically telling Marinette like Marinette keeps trying to call her out and nobody believes Marinette about her. And this actually comes up at the end of the season too in an episode. But nobody believes Marinette about Lila. And Lila keeps trying to be manipulative and blah, blah, blah. And later on she gets akumatized as Chameleon there. And I think this is the episode where... Is this the episode where Adrian and Marinette talk? I think Adrian and Marinette talk later on in this episode, at the very end, where he's like... Where she's like, don't you know that she's lying? And he's like, yeah, of course I know that, but, you know, it never is going to solve anything to like, you know, to tell on her and make everything even worse for her, you know? He still believes that they can get Lila to become a better person or whatever, which is a foolhardy errand. Hawkmoth's a better person than Lila in a lot of ways. Lila is just like pure evil and she just loves lying. She's so manipulative too. And that's kind of what the whole episode is about. I think near the end of the episode or like the middle of the episode or something, she has this like really like evilly kind of line where she's like, you seem a lot less dumb than the other ones, and it's just so mean to like everyone else she's pretending to be friends with. She's like, she says this to Marinette. She's like, you seem a lot less dumb than the other ones. So you're either with me or against me, basically. And at the end of the episode, she says that she's gonna make her life a living hell, which she kind of does in a later episode in Ladybug. There, the episode. But the rest of the episode is just about her. She has a power, like, when she kisses people, she'll turn into them. So, like, she turns into Adrian. She turns into, like, a little kid. Nothing special. It's just nice to see Lila again and, like, Hawkmoth realize, like, she's gonna become, like, more of a ally to him later on and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of, it's an alright episode. It's pretty good. More Lila, you know. And she always needs more episodes because, spoilers, I should have said, but, you know, she's going to be the next Hawkmoth or whatever, so I don't know what she's going to call herself, but it'll be interesting to see. Anna Maestro, which is a great episode. Thomas Astruck, the director of the show, is in the episode as a character. They're premiering the Ladybug and Cat Noir movie, which is based on the old anime version of Ladybug and Cat Noir from before the show, the original version that they were gonna do and they didn't do, but it's based on that. So anyway, there's a Ladybug and Cat Noir movie that Gabriel Agreste is making, I guess because he mentioned that in the last episodes of season 2 there, or I guess it was the first episode of the last episodes of season 2 there. And basically Thomas Astruck just keeps getting shit on because everyone's like, you know, oh, you did the animation or you did the story or whatever. He's like, well, no, I'm the director. And they keep like, what does the director do, you know, specifically or whatever. Basically downplaying his contributions all the time, and nobody's excited to see him except for Marinette at the very end. And the whole time Marinette's there trying to be a server. Adrian and Kagame are there, like, together. She's really jealous of them, so she teams up with Chloe to try to push them apart. And Marinette's, like, trying to get into the movie the whole time. So she can, like, sit there next to Adrian and, like, watch the movie and whatever. So, yeah. So, wait, what is this? Weird. Anyway, so yeah, but then when Thomas Astruck gets akumatized, that's great because he switches a bunch of art styles. He's like Evil Majestia at one point, which is like the Superman, except Superwoman, I guess, of this universe. We actually do see later in the New York special there, so that'll be interesting to go back and watch it at some point. Yeah, I forgot about those specials. When did those come in? Are those before season 4 or something? That's like midway through season 4? I can't remember. Wonder when those are. Maybe those are next. I have no clue. And do I do their own video on those? Or do I include them with like season 4 or whatever? Hard to say. We'll see what I do with those. So yeah. So yeah, he switches between he's like a Sailor Moon aesthetic at one point. He's like a giant dinosaur at one point. Just a bunch of different crazy art styles. Pretty cool akumatization there. Unique power too. It's like if you're not watching him, he just like pauses. He needs eyes on him at all times. It's kind of cool. Kind of a cool thing there. All right, I guess that was it for the soundtrack. I know we listen to this one every time, but it's the only Ladybug music there is. So, as far as I'm concerned, we have to listen to that at least, or maybe not, but you know, whatever. So yeah, I don't know. Fuck it. Let's go for this. So yeah, it's a cool episode. I like the akumatized villain, Thomas Astruck. The fact that he made himself into the show is pretty crazy. There's this whole thing about Marinette making like this single macaroon for Adrian every week. That's like his favorite flavor. Apparently Chloe didn't know that Marinette liked Adrian. She's so dense sometimes, but I don't know. Anyway, it's a pretty good episode, Anna Maestro. It's a fun one for sure. And it kind of cements that whole Kagame Adrian thing as being a thing, you know. Because they really pushed for that this season, and then at the beginning of next season is Kagame and Adrian and Luca and Marinette. Which originally was kind of a pain in the ass, but I think as Kagame and Luca evolved into their own characters after the fact, in hindsight, I don't mind it, and I actually kind of like it because I like their characters, you know. I like what they did with Luca later, but then they kind of shoved him out of the show, which was kind of shitty. But I like how he knew both of their identities later on, which is pretty cool. And Kagame, she gets a lot of good screen time later in this season, and very much grows her character, which I really like, so. But at this point, Marinette and Kagame still aren't friends, and they're just kind of, I don't want to say enemies, but kind of in that vein. She's just kind of jealous of Kagame getting all Adrian's attention. Anyway, so Bakerix, next episode. So Tom, you know, Marinette's dad, is turning 40, which is, like, crazy. They definitely look like, I don't know, not that old, but, like, it looks pretty good for 40. Anyway, but Marinette's grandpa, who is married to the awesome biker lady, which I don't know how the fuck that worked, you know, Bafana, that grandma. Not a different grandma, but that one. But he's like this traditional ass dude or whatever. So I don't understand how that all played out. But anyway, Tom, Marinette's dad, hasn't seen his dad in a long time, even though he lives in the same city, but he kind of cut himself off back when him and Sabine got married. Tom and Sabine, you know, Marinette's parents. And you end up finding out later, I mean, you don't find it out, but if you read the room on the episode, it's actually, like, kind of about racism. Like, he doesn't like Sabine because she's Asian, you know? And that's kind of the whole thing about it. If you really look at the episode and understand what they're trying to get at there, they never explicitly say these, like, racism things in Ladybug, but they definitely imply it. And later on in season 4, when Sabine has her akumatization, they do the same thing, and it's about racism again. I'm kind of dense with these things. I didn't pick up on that the first time, but when you understand that, it's like, okay, I see what they're going for here. So, but they do make a metaphor throughout the episode with the rice bread versus the regular bread. You know, he's like, that's not how it's done. He's very traditional, you know. He'd probably have had Tom marry, like, I don't know, another Parisian girl or something, like a French girl. So, anyway, yeah, so Marinette tries to go and get her grandpa on board to go to Tom's birthday, but he's very shut away, and basically she has to sneak in, disguised as this, like, flower delivery lady or whatever, because he's like a baker, and that's his whole thing. And eventually he finds her out, and, you know, but they're spending time together, etc. And he gets akumatized. Why does he get akumatized? I don't honestly remember. The encounter agitates Roland and... Okay. So, I mean, I guess just that Marinette's there, like, trying to get him to come to the birthday party, like, gets him akumatized, because he's all agitated. He's like, that's not how it's done. That's the line he always says. So he turns into Bakerix, which is just basically this giant bread monster thing. And he, like, I don't know, shoots people or something. It's funny I don't really remember much about him as Baker because I remember more of him as Simple Man later on in the next season, where he turns everything more simple. That makes sense. But I don't know. What could Bakerix's powers even be? I swear I've seen this episode a bunch of times and I still don't even fucking remember. So, yeah, but it's a good episode for the Marinette and her grandpa stuff. They have a good dynamic. And then when he finally ends up going to the party at the end, there's a really nice scene where Marinette's dad hears him come in, and Marinette's grandma's there, and she's like, Roland? Like, his dad's name. And he, like, turns around, and you see this, like, really genuine happiness on his face. And that moment always gets me. I always, like, get a little emotional at that part. And I'm like, oh, it's really nice. It's got a really nice ending to the episode. And Marinette kind of changes his mind on spending time with the family and whatnot. And who's to say he's not still being racist or whatever, but hey, you know, he gave this a shot, you know? And he accepted that he had this granddaughter and stuff. That's nice. It's nice. It's a nice episode, you know, so for what's essentially a filler episode, it does fill out Marinette's family a little bit more, and you kind of get to learn about this backstory to her grandpa. Yeah, so episode 6 is Silencer. This is Luca's akumatization episode. Bob Roth, the music producer guy, is looking for a new sound for his son, XY. This is also where we find out XY is his son. You know, we've seen XY previously in, I think, Guitar Villain or something. Anyway, so his son is basically this fraud, this hack. You know, he's not a good music guy at all. So they basically put out this contest to get new musical talent. So Marinette, along with Luca and Rose and Adrian, you know, Kitty Section, the band, you know, they all get together and make a new song with like new costumes and stuff, you know, and they send it in to Bob Roth, and then he steals that, and then they go to like confront him about it, and they get really pissed off, and Luca especially gets really pissed off. Marinette's trying to like just not have it escalate any further, but Luca's like, it's not fair that he stole our fucking ideas, you know? And so he gets akumatized, and he becomes Silencer, so he can silence anybody who he like uses his powers on, but he can actually take their voice. It's like these little voice parasite things or something. I don't fucking know. Is this Metal Gear Solid 5, the Phantom Pain? You know, like, I don't know how many of you would get that reference, but if you know, you know. So, yeah, anyway, and as Silencer, he makes this, like, confession of love to Marinette. I used to hate this episode because I hated Luca, but I don't hate Luca anymore. This is an okay episode. It's not the best episode, but it's alright. You know, I don't mind it too much. I still think Captain Hard Rock is kind of a drag of an episode, but this one is okay. It's pretty low tier for the season, but it's alright, you know? So the whole thing is like, Marinette as Ladybug loses her voice, so it's this whole gimmick of she has to like text Cat all these things and whatever, and then he has to make Luca, she has to make Luca say Lucky Charm in her voice. You know, he does this thing. He does like the little sock puppet thing with his hand, and that's how he like talks. Like this, you know, Tiki, Spanson! You know, like he does that. Like, it's so stupid. It's an alright episode. It's kind of funny. That stuff's kind of funny. It's an interesting little gimmick for the episode. And then at the end of the episode, he, like, confesses to Marinette again. she's like, did you really mean all those things that you said as Silencer? And he's like, well, I don't know what I said, Marinette, but, you know, you're the song that's been playing in my heart and blah, 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 ever since. And Tiki's like, that sounds like a confession of love to me, Marinette, and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, alright episode. It kind of is just, it's kind of the, I don't know. I don't know if Kagame and Adrian have a similar episode, but it's kind of to set up Luca, you know, with Marinette there. So yeah. Anyway, so that's an okay episode. I'm not the biggest fan of that one. Now you know what I am the biggest fan of, and it is one of the top tier episodes, probably a top 5 episode for me, if not at least a top 10 episode. Oblivio. Now that is a great episode. You start off the episode, they're inside an elevator, and they're detransforming, and they detransform in front of each other, and you look at it and you're like, oh my god, is this the identity reveal? And they're like, who are we? And then the Kwamis don't even know who they are. So you realize this is like a memory wipe situation, which is great. And so they're like kind of roaming the building as Marinette and Adrian, and they're like piecing this together, trying to figure out like how to get into their phones and stuff, and like trying to figure out what the situation is and like what the Kwamis are and all of that stuff. Marinette eventually gets the idea to call Master Fu, and he kind of explains everything. But before that, she like gets into her phone and calls her mom, and she's like talking about how Ladybug and Cat Noir were supposed to be there fighting Oblivio, this villain, at the building they're at, this like tall building in Paris or whatever. And then Marinette pieces that together. She like sees the poster for the movie too, and then she's like, oh no. She like puts it together in her head, and she's like, oh yeah, we're fine, Mom. And Adrian's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We were calling our parents for help. And then she like hangs up the phone, and she's like, I have good news and bad news. The good news is there's superheroes called Ladybug and Cat Noir, and they're gonna save the day. The bad news is that's us. So, she figures that out, which is fun. And then they like start asking each other, like, do you think we know each other's identities? And then they like show each other the phones like really coyly, and like, you know, he's got all the pictures of Ladybug on there, and she's got all the pictures of Adrian on there, and they're like they just like they fall in love the whole episode and stuff. It's great. It's so cute and adorable, and it's such a good like indicator of like where we're headed, you know, in the future. And especially at the time, it was such a big, groundbreaking episode. And the kiss at the end, for the first time legitimately, you know, not like in Dark Cupid, where it was like a one-sided sort of kiss that she had to do. They kiss because they both want to, and it's nice, and it's a good moment at the end there. But also, what I like about the episode, too, is Oblivio, and you don't even see Oblivio get akumatized until, like, later. You know, you kind of understand what happened at the very end of the episode. But it's Ollie and Nino, and you can hear both of their voices in the Oblivio thing. And he's got this great, they have this great power, because it is Ollie and Nino. They have this great power to erase people's memories, or whatever. And so we also see, like Nadia Shamak and stuff, and she's like, what do I do? And they're like, you're the news person, you read the news or whatever. Don't be bemused, it's just the news. She like says it like really awkwardly or whatever. Stuff like that. It's fun. It's a really good episode. I just like, I love all of the working parts to it. I love the fact that their memories are erased, and then they realize that they're in love, and it just shows, it goes to show, if the circumstances were a little bit different, just very slightly different, and they didn't really care that much, they would be in love. And we all know that already, but you know, it's just fun to see. It's a really good episode. Every piece of the episode just works. It is such a fun episode to watch, to enjoy, and then Alia takes the picture at the end of them kissing, so that's permanent. And she shows it to him later and stuff. So that's fun. Just a really fun episode overall. One of the best episodes of the season. one of my favorite episodes of Ladybug, for sure. Just really good. Stormy Weather 2, really, really lackluster episode. Very low tier, much like the original Stormy Weather. There are some fun bits of, like, them kind of defeating Stormy Weather off-screen kind of thing. Like, all the descriptions and whatnot are interesting, but other than that, it's just kind of a clip show that recontextualizes a lot of pieces of the previous seasons and a little bit of this season. There's not really a lot gained from it. And it does happen near the end of the season, so it is just kind of a recap thing. Not much to say about it. It's an okay episode all overall, but it's pretty low tier. It's just not great in my opinion. So totally episode, you know. Reflect All, which is a good episode. I do like this one. Another fun episode. Ladybug and Cat Noir actually get their miraculous... They get each other's miraculouses through circumstances because they take off the jewelry for modeling. Like, Marinette's having this thing where she's modeling her clothes alongside Adrian. For some reason, Julika wants to be a model, but she just kind of gets nervous at the last second, and then she ends up getting akumatized later. And this is also a notable episode for being the first use of senti monsters outside of the little bit of the last season, you know, where there was a senti monster. But this is kind of where we finally get this introduction and you know, like the real introduction to senti monsters there. Julika gets this thing, Reflect All, who's her senti monster, and she becomes Reflecta again. But yeah, so Ladybug and Cat Noir get their power switch, so they become Mr. Bug and Lady Noir is the other one. So, and then they have to use each other's powers, basically, and they give each other a bunch of shit about each other's powers and stuff, and basically it's just so they can walk a mile in each other's shoes. And it's a fun episode. I like it. I think it's good. It's meant to be an early on episode, like episode 5. I remember it was one of the last episodes in the season to come out, though, back in the day. Like, it really came out super late. So, yeah. Anyway, so, yeah, good episode. Oni-chan, which is another sort of Lila episode. She, like, basically manipulates the bodyguard Gorzilla or Gorilla or whatever you want to call him. Why does he not have a name? Can we just give him a name already? He's just the bodyguard. Like, give him a name. He needs a name, you know? I know he doesn't talk at all, but still, give him a name. He's a person, right? Or is he? Bodyguard sent a monster theory? Oh. Nobody's ever done that one. I mean, he doesn't talk much, so maybe. So yeah, anyway, Lila manipulates her way into the house there, and then Gabriel Gress gets like really pissed about that later, but she just wants to like hang out with Adrian and whatever. She uses the excuse of like doing homework together or whatever, and then when she leaves, he gets real angry about that. But Kagame, she like takes a picture of herself like arm around Adrian, like giving him a kiss or something, and like she sends this to Kagame and a bunch of other people. But Kagame gets really pissed about this, and she becomes Oni-chan, who's like purpose is to get after Lila, and then like she gives Lila this giant horn, so every time she lies, the horn gets bigger. But then like she can teleport through people's phones, kind of like Lady Wi-Fi, but they have to like answer the thing, and then she like swaps places with that person. So that's like the whole power. It's an interesting episode. It's not terrible or anything. It's pretty good. It's better than some of the low tier episodes we've talked about so far. Good little bit of Lila, good little bit of Kagame. You know, always good to see more of either of those characters. Interesting little gimmick there. Just a fun episode to watch. And then Lila also at the end makes an alliance with Gabriel Agreste. So that kind of plays into things later. So Miraculous is a good episode. There's been this ongoing thing about Chloe, and I think they've kind of brought it up in a couple of episodes to this point. But her wanting her Miraculous back, and there's this whole thing where Marinette needs to tell Chloe she can't have her Miraculous back, because, you know, because her secret identity is already out there. So, but it turns out Mayura and Hawkmoth have been watching Chloe for when she gets the Miraculous back so that they can track Marinette back to the Guardian, basically. So yeah, but this episode is good because she is there, like, she's got a Queen Bee symbol or whatever, like a spotlight, you know, like Batman kind of thing up into the sky. And Marinette, you know, or Ladybug doesn't want to give her the Miraculous because it's dangerous, but her and Sabrina somehow. Why does Sabrina get akumatized again? I forget. It's a whole thing. Right. So he tries to akumatize Chloe because she isn't getting her Miraculous, but Chloe actually does the craziest shit ever, and she's the first person to reject an Akuma, and the Akuma goes away, which is awesome. And that just shows how, like, strong Chloe's will towards Ladybug is, which isn't meant to last, and I get that's the point, but I was really rooting for Chloe and her redemption, but it's not the direction the show wanted to take. They do a 180 with it later on, but I think that was definitely set in stone because of the whole identity thing. But also, she has every right to get pissed off later because in the last episode, Kagame gets her Miraculous back even though she did a similar thing, so I don't know. Ladybug's a hypocrite, I guess. But yeah, so instead, Sabrina gets akumatized as Miraculous, and she has the power when she touches a person with a Miraculous, she gets the power of that person. So, you know, like she gets Ladybug's power, she gets Noir's Cataclysm power, she Lucky Charms, she gets the giant anime sword, of course, like every time that happens. She Cataclysms Cat, which doesn't end up being as bad as when Hawkmoth gets cataclysmed later on, but yeah, so, but he's also, well, I mean, but Hawkmoth also has the Miraculous, so I don't know how that works. Cat really gets, like, messed up from that, though, because he got Cataclysm, which is not good. Obviously, it's very strong force. But yeah, it's a fun episode to see her have all of those powers and fight against everyone else. And then at the same time, Chloe gets her Miraculous back, and Mayura and Hawkmoth are like, hey, you know, you could just be Queen Bee all the time if you join us. And she consistently keeps denying them the fact to join them, even though that is where she ultimately ends up later on in the season, because she believes in Ladybug that much, you know? And I think at the end of the episode, Ladybug does tell her, like, hey, I'm probably not going to be able to give you back this Miraculous, and then she's like, well, you'll come back and give me the Miraculous Ladybug. You have to, like, blah, blah, blah. I'm the only queen bee, and, you know, she doesn't really get it, like, that she can't be queen bee because of her identity stuff, so. But yeah, it's a cool episode. I like it. I think it's fun. I like Sabrina being akumatized as a like a prominent villain again. That's fun. Yeah. So now we have to talk about Puppeteer 2. I don't want to talk about Puppeteer 2, but I also kind of do want to talk about Puppeteer 2. This episode, this broke me. No, it kind of did, though. It kind of broke me the first time I watched this episode. Oh my god, it is such a hard episode to watch. I don't want to call it cringy like everyone else does, but that's kind of accurate. Like, okay, so the whole premise of the episode is they're making these wax statues for this museum, right? And Adrian is one of the statues. So he has to go there and get his hand molded again because, like, the hand got stolen or something. I don't know. It's a weird thing. But anyway, so he brings Marinette and Alia and Nino back, and then Marinette's also babysitting Minot, so she also goes with to the museum. And nobody's paying attention to Minot because, you know, why would they? So, eventually she ends up getting akumatized as Puppeteer 2, though. But Alia is trying to set up her, you know, Marinette and Adrian alone. So she does, but also the whole episode, there's a lot of misunderstandings about how, like, she keeps telling Nino not to tell about Marinette and like, how Marinette feels, or whatever. And so she's like, Olia's just like, just deny everything. So then he gets Adrian to start thinking that Marinette doesn't like him even as a friend anymore. And so she has to, like, really stumble her way around all of this. It's such an awkward episode to watch because it's just like, oh my god. Like, all this lying and stuff and just deceit and just all this, like, these little misunderstandings and stuff. It's just so hard to watch. And then, of course, they do the infamous statue scene where Adrian wants to prank Marinette and pretends to be a statue for some fucking reason. So Marinette, like, goes up to him and starts, like, really being just Marinette as fuck. Like, early season 1 Marinette. You know, you felt like she came all this way. But she just started, like, professing to him. Like, she's like, oh, if only we were both statues and then we could kiss or some shit like that. She just, like, goes all out. And then she, like, goes in for the kiss. And she's like, oh, he smells like Adrian. He feels like Adrian. All this stuff. And then she, like, goes in for the kiss and he's like, whoa, you know, like, and he, like, you know, comes to life again. And she has to explain that, like, she was just joking too, or whatever, even though, like, she wasn't. And this whole time, like, after that, it's like, Minot gets to, like, take the statues, and, you know, and that's her puppeteer stuff this time. She gets to control the statues or whatever. So that aspect of the episode is also cool. She actually does a pretty devious thing, Mike. She, like, takes a hostage and is, like, ready to burn the guy in, like, hot wax or whatever, if they don't give up the Miraculous. But Ladybug, like, tricks her somehow. I don't remember. Something like that. But it is interesting. But anyway, the whole other half of the episode is just so hard to watch. Just because it's just like, what the fuck? Like, oh my god. It's just like, ugh. It's so frustrating. And it's also so, like, what is going on here? Why are we doing this? Why is this episode existing? It's just really hard to watch. at the end of the episode, they have this nice moment inside of the car where they like tell each other, "No, I'm not mad at you. I'd never be mad at you. We're great friends and all this stuff." And then Adrian lets it slip. He's like, "Yeah, the girl that I love, like, doesn't like jokes or something." And Marinette gets all closed up, and she's like, "Oh, the girl that you love." And then at the end of the episode, she's all like sulking about that. Tiki's like, "Life has so many surprises, Marinette. You might be surprised yet." And it's like, shut the fuck up, Tiki. You know. But like, oh my god, it's so stupid. It's a good episode, but it's just not one I want to rewatch. It's just so hard to watch all of this terrible like failure of romance there, and just like all the little like weird, I don't know, eccentricities and just like all the way she has to like dodge telling Adrian that she likes him and stuff. It's so contrived and convoluted is what it really comes down to. And I know that's sometimes something we like in an episode like this. I think it's a good episode. I just think it's kind of hard to watch, I would much prefer just seeing them together later on. Or something like Felix, in which we'll talk about in a bit, where she like does a video message and you're like, oh man, is it gonna happen? It feels like a tease, is what it really feels like. We're just prolonging things. That's this whole season, is just prolonging things. A little bit of a reason why it's a little bit weaker, I feel like, than season 2. But just by a little bit. There's still so many great aspects to this season. So let's keep talking about it. Let's move on from Puppeteer 2. Desperado, which is a great episode. I really like this one. It kind of got spoiled in the release order because Gamer 2.0, which we'll talk about later, came out before this one. So we saw the character Desperada in that briefly. But anyway, there's a whole other kind of sort of cringy thing where Jagged Stone's looking for like a guitarist, and Marinette's like, Adrian can do it, even though Luca's right there with the guitar, and he's like, well, what about that boy with the guitar right there? And he's like, oh yeah, good point, Luca, give Adrian your guitar. And Adrian's like, I don't even know how to play the guitar. It's like, come on, Marinette. Come on, Marinette. And so she makes a similar thing later on with she has to choose who to give the Snake Miraculous to, which has the power of second chance, so you can rewind a little bit, like, I don't know, like a couple of minutes or whatever. So she gives it to Adrian. Adrian spends months, he literally says, I spent months trying to figure this out, and it never worked out. I'm just not the right fit for this job. She gives it to Luca, and he figures it out really fast. But in the Adrian stuff, there's a lot of different scenarios. He actually tells... Oh, also, he can't be Cat Noir because he's Snake, aspic or whatever he does. Luca chooses the name Viperion. Yeah, but it's notable because Marinette also gives Adrian a Miraculous, which you think she would have done sooner, but whatever. But yeah, so he tries for months, apparently, which is insane that that's a thing. He tells Ladybug in one of the reboots that he, like, loves her, and he's actually also Cat Noir, and all this stuff, and there's, like, a bunch of different scenarios like that. And he can't figure it out. So Luca gets it after rewinding a couple times there. And so he becomes the stakeholder from then on. But yeah, it's an interesting episode. I do like Desperada. Desperada is a villain who's like one of Jagged Stone's like bandmates or whatever. I think the guitarist. We also figure out that Jagged Stone and Luca's mom, and Julica's mom, that is, for the same regard there, were once together at one point or in a band together, but it's kind of obvious that they were together, sort of thing. So, yeah. Um, good episode. Good episode. I like that one a lot. Um, Star Train, which is another episode that's pretty good. So it's about Max's mom. They're going on this trip on the Star Train to London. Max's mom is the conductor. She's the one who gets akumatized later. It's this whole thing where somebody else is supposed to get akumatized and then they don't. And then the Akuma like hides in a bag, Sabrina's bag or whatever, and then it opens on the train. And it actually goes out of range of Hawkmoth there, so that's a thing apparently. But she turns the whole train into like like a spaceship and goes into space because her dream is to be an astronaut or whatever. She was really bummed that they haven't sent her this email about how she did on her astronaut tests or whatever. So yeah, and then there's a whole thing about Ladybug not being able to leave, but then Master Fu is like, it's okay because there's a horse Miraculous that you can use to teleport and stuff. And so yeah, that's a thing. And the Cat Noir is also on the train, and she knows that. She doesn't want to find out who Cat Noir is, but she knows he's somebody who was on that train, so she should put two and two together and realize that's Adrian, but whatever, you know. So, also notable for being the first time they give Max the horse Miraculous, and they help save the day up there in space, and it's just a fun episode. It's pretty good. Notable scene in the episode. Well, first of all, Lila, she's a little bitch, and she's trying to, like, come in and sneak in next to Adrian, and, like, Alia shuts that down, like, super fast. But, notable scene, they get Marinette and Adrian to sit together, and then, like, Marinette, like, falls asleep on his shoulder, and then Adrian just looks over at that and, like, smiles, and then, like, leans in and falls asleep, too. Oh, it's so cute! And I love it so much. Everyone loves it, too. They're all, like, taking pictures and stuff. So cute. Awesome. So good. So that's kind of the notable thing about that episode. It's a fun episode, overall. Kwame Buster, which is a good episode, notable for being the first episode, I think, that we find out about fusions. So, Plague and Tiki are seen by Mrs. Mendeleev. She keeps setting this cheese up to try and capture Plague. And she captures a video of them. Not video, shouldn't be in quotes. Of them should be in quotes. Because they can't get captured on video, apparently, which we find out in this episode. But she knows that they exist, so she becomes Kwame Buster. She gets akumatized because she goes on this game show, and they don't believe her or whatever. She gets akumatized as Kwame Buster, and so she has like this, she's like a Ghostbuster, right? She has like a vacuum that sucks in all the Kwames. Marinette has to go and get the Mouse Miraculous and, like, shrink down to a size... Or not shrink down. Yeah, no, she does shrink down. But also... Oh, she shrinks down because she multiplies herself. That was what it was. So then all of the little different Marinettes are able to get the Kwames out of the vacuum or something like that. Because she can, like, cataclysm the inside of the vacuum. It's something to that effect. Because Tiki and Plog both get taken out. Well, they get taken into the Kwame Buster thing. Also very notable because before all of this, in the bathrooms, Adrian puts together that Marinette is there, and that Tiki was also nearby, or something to that effect. And he's like, wait a second, could Marinette be Ladybug? And Flag has to, like, totally like, oh no, there's no way Marinette could be Ladybug, and blah 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 blah. And she covers her tracks at the end of the episode by unveiling herself. She has the Fox Miraculous, which she makes an illusion of her as Marinette giving back the Mouse Miraculous to Ladybug, and pretending that was just because she's clumsy or whatever, so that Adrian will believe that Marinette isn't Ladybug. So this further just throws them off the track. A lot like the Hawkmoth thing with the Gabriel Gress, like in season 2, at the beginning of season 2. Like that should have been when Marinette found out that Gabriel Gress was Hawkmoth, but we don't want to do that until the season 5 finale, so so yeah, anyway. So good episode though. I like Kwame Buster. A lot of unique stuff going on there. A lot of furthering of the lore. Feast, another great episode to further the lore. We finally find out what happened with Master Fu and how he lost the Miraculouses, and the big mistake that he made with the Guardians and all of that. He was going through his Guardian training and he got hungry, so he created this monster, the Senta monster, Feast. But it ended up like eating basically all of the monks and the facilities there, and they like burned down or whatever. So he took the grimoire and the last box, the last miracle box that had the Miraculouses with him. So and he lost the two on his way out of there. But anyway, so Feast, the Senti monster, is back. They've unearthed him, and Mayura basically gets him to be alive again. So he's chasing after Master Fu because he's got the last Miraculouses, and the whole thing is the thing has like the stupidest miraculous. That's what he says. He's like, yum yum miraculous. That's what he sounds like. Anyway, so, but the whole notable thing is he takes back the Miraculous from Ladybug and Cat Noir in the middle of the night and like runs off because he doesn't want them to have to deal with Feast or whatever. And so he starts running, but Marinette and Adrian, put on these like... Adrian puts on the Mr. Banana costume, and then Marinette just has like a helmet and stuff. And they're chasing after Master Fu, and they're like, we want to help you no matter what, even if we don't have our Miraculouses or whatever. Eventually he gives them back the Miraculouses. This is also when Hawkmoth like sees who the Guardian is and stuff, so this is kind of an important episode for that, because after this, Master Fu has to be under disguise every time that he hands the Miraculouses out to Marinette or whatever. And this is only like a few episodes from the end of the season, canonically, so, like within the last 5 or so, or 10 episodes, at the end of the season there. So yeah, it's a great episode because we get kind of that backstory, and he ends up realizing that Ladybug and Cat Noir, Adrian and Marinette are worthy of doing this, even beyond his time as the Guardian. And this is at the end of the episode. He also tells Marinette, like, hey, we're gonna make you the Guardian. You're gonna be the Guardian soon, and I'm gonna train you for that, and blah blah blah. And also, whenever they finally defeat Feast and they do the Miraculous Ladybug, the Tibetan monks are back, so we'll see them in the next season and stuff. And that actually comes into play in the specials too, about like the other Miraculouses and whatnot. So good episode. I like Feast. It's very top tier for this season. Very good episode, especially when it came out. And now you want to talk about top tier for this season. Akari Gozen is a fantastic episode. Super good. The whole premise is like all of these people are participating in this phone game contest, like where you get clues and you have to go to the next location and the next location, and the whole goal is to find Adrian Agreste at the end of it all. Which they end up losing, but and it's like this whole thing you gotta like get to like make a friend along the way. So Marinette gets paired up with Kagame, and she's like, oh my god, I hate Kagame. She's just trying to fucking like take Adrian and all this stuff, and then she ends up realizing throughout the episode like Kagame doesn't have any friends. She has no contacts on her phone except for her mom, and she's like early in the episode Kagame's like doing all this weird stuff, like smile. She has like this weird fucking smile, like really big smile and stuff. And she's like asking all these weird questions like about her blood type and stuff. Well, when Marinette gets her phone later on as part of the game, she realizes she sees this app and it's like saying you need to smile in order to make friends, and it's got like all these questions on there to ask new friends, and she's like, oh my god, Kagame was just trying to make friends this whole time. It's really heartbreaking, honestly. And then so you find all this out about Kagame, and you're like, oh my god, I feel so bad for her. You know, like, you would think, no, she's just like this great person. She's got all these friends. But she doesn't. She doesn't even have Adrian's number, you know? It's like, wow. You know, it's just an episode where you feel really bad for Kagame. And also, Marinette's like trash talking Kagame to Alia like earlier in the episode, and Kagame sees that and gets really saddened by that. But anyway, her mom ends up getting akumatized because she realizes her child isn't within her grasp or whatever, you know. Her and Adrian have a lot of freedom issues and whatnot where they're not allowed to be free, you know, and go out and do their own things. And this kind of plays into the Kagame Sentimonster stuff next season. But, yeah, and there's a scene in this episode, or maybe it was Riposte, where she, like, gives her the ring, and she's like, no, you keep it, you know, it's cool if you have it, which is, like, her muck object, supposedly. Anyway, that's for next season. Actually, that's not even next season. That's season 5. So, I don't even know why I said next season. So, but anyway, yeah, Akari goes in. It's a great episode. Also, Kagame gets the dragon Miraculous later on, which is really cool. And she gets to be that for a second. Like I said earlier, she kind of blows her identity or whatever. But really cool to see that. Her mom is a really cool villain. I like that. Just lots of great stuff going on in this episode. And by the end, Marinette and Kagame become good friends. And it's great. And they have such a humble and wholesome friendship. And we get to see that in the season finale, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So, I love Akari Gozen. That's a great episode. Time Tagger, which is another great episode. This actually got released, like, I think like midway through the season. When it was like a later episode, too. But a really great episode. So Mr. Pigeon gets akumatized for the 24th time, and Hawkmoth is like, this man is useless! And it's like, you akumatized this motherfucker for the 24th time, and you're just now realizing he's useless? Like, come on, Hawkmoth. So yeah, what were we talking about? Time Tagger. Yeah, interesting episode. How does it even, like, kicks off with Mr. Pigeon, right? And then, eventually, as they're about to transform back, this villain Time Tagger comes into the picture, from the future. And Hawkmoth's like, whoa, like, what the fuck is going on with that? That's crazy. And, I think, like, so they go to the museum because they get like this hint about that, and then Alex, how did they get the hint though? I don't remember about that. Alex, you know, the girl, has that watch from episode 5, and she's like, oh man, it's never gone off until just today. And I think that's what gives them the clue about like the museum, the oldest exhibit or something. So they go there, and then they find out that like Alex, older Alex, has been encased in stone this whole time. Like, how does that work? Because of the time miraculous, does it like keep her encased? I don't know. Anyway, um, so they break her open, and then she is there as Bunnix, and then she detransforms. So Alex realizes that someday she'll get the miraculous. They both detransform, and then come back in as Ladybug and Cat Noir. Obviously, they keep talking, and she calls him Mini Bug, a Kit Noir, or whatever, which is kind of funny, because she knows the future Ladybug and Cat Noir when they're adults. So, and there's a whole thing about like him sending Time Tagger sending people back to the past. So like you see like Jagged Stone and Nadia Shamok like back in ancient days. They show up in the museum as like famous people and stuff, and then it's just a cool power. He has the power to like open portals to different times or whatever. But Bunnix can also do a similar thing. So with her miraculous, also we figure out that that watch is actually a miraculous in disguise. So that's pretty cool. Kind of brings a lot of light to why like Alex's whole thing was like time powers and whatnot. And when she got akumatized, I thought that was kind of cool. So, and you know, I love Alex in that episode. The time turner, time tagger. It's not time something from season 1. That's a good Timebreaker. Timebreaker. That's it. Timebreaker. Season 1. Great episode. Yeah, so seeing Alex as Bunnix was really cool, especially for the first time there. And we get a lot more of her in the next season, and a little bit more at the end of this season. So yeah, so that was cool. But yeah, it's just generally overall great episode. You see Time Tagger, who's actually Chris, that kid. We haven't seen the episode Chris Master yet, but for some reason that's at the end of the season, which like that is not when Chris Master got released. It was like earlier on in the season, but anyway. That kid, Nito's little brother, Chris, is Time Tagger in the future, but then he says something like, I'm getting these miraculouses, but not for you, Hawkmoth, for a different Hawkmoth in the future, or something like that, and he's, because he keeps congratulating himself, he's like, yes, of course I would do this pledge in the future, and blah, blah, blah. So, and then at the end of the episode, it's made apparent that the new Hawkmoth is going to be Lila, and this is like 2 seasons before they did the end of season 5 there, where we do see all of that happen, come to fruition, but it's pretty cool to see all of that laid out here in advance. Like, a lot of good groundwork set up, and Time Tagger's just like a fun villain, I feel like. I really like this episode overall. I think it's a good one, for sure. And Mr. Pigeon, you can't beat that. That's always a funny running gag. They talk about a bunch of villains from the future, too, which is interesting. Party Crasher, which is an interesting episode. You got Wham, who's the the super Adrian fam from Gorzilla there. He's talking to Adrian. Adrian starts throwing this party. The like power goes out, and Emily's like the dead wife guard in there. Hollow Dad is originated in this episode. That's a big meme. So he's supposed to be off, I think in London or something, for a fashion week, and but he's there at home ready to akumatize people, I guess. I don't really remember why he was staying back, but anyway. there's this big party that they're throwing while he's away because, Adrian never gets to do anything fun. But Nino makes it so just all the boys can come, but William doesn't get invited, and by the time he gets there, the Gorzilla doesn't let him in, so he gets all hurt and offended, and gets akumatized into Party Crasher. But before that, Marinette, tries to get in there, as Marinette, and that doesn't work out, so she, cross-dresses as Marino, and gets in there as a big manly man, she says, and so that's interesting. Master Fu is in there. What does he call himself? DJ Wong Wiki or some shit? I don't fucking remember. It's so stupid. So he's there. This is also the notable first handout of the Miraculous to Kim, of the monkey Miraculous there, which just has really random powers, and that's kind of how they end up defeating Party Crasher, is this randomness. But also notably, Viperion and Max's thing, Matrix Man, are part of the team here. So we get to see a lot of heroes at once again, which is kind of a fun thing, alongside Kim as the Monkey King or whatever. So that's fun. Wham's a pretty good villain as Party Crasher. It's basically a similar power to Desperata and a bunch of other ones where he touches you, you go into his disco ball thing. It's like the Collector, all of those kind of things. So that's fun. But he can also see the patterns of where people are gonna land or walk and stuff. So he's really hard to defeat. And the way to defeat him, because he can see everything planned out, is to be incredibly random, so that's a fun thing. It's a good episode overall. As a sort of filler episode, it's a good one, and I like it. There's a couple of notable things happening there, but nothing too special or anything. But it is a good episode overall. I wouldn't, I like watching this episode is the idea, so. Gamer 2.0. Really disappointing in comparison to the original Gamer. The whole premise of the episode, it is a kind of a fun episode premise. I do like the premise of the episode. Marinette's super busy with a lot of things, and all she wants to do is play video games, and Max has a new game that he's programmed, that he wants people to try, and at the end of the episode he gets Marinette's parents to play the game. I like all of that. All of that is good. The middle part of the episode where they're actually in the game, playing the game, is kind of dull and boring. It's kind of fun to see a couple of the face-offs. It's all of the akumatized people and Ladybug and Cat Noir, and they're all playable characters in this fighting game. If that was a real game, I would play the fuck out of that. But at the same token, just as a episode of the show, watching them fight, again and again, and blah blah blah, and all this stuff, it's kind of repetitive and pretty dull by the end. There are some good jokes and stuff in there, but it's not one of my favorite episodes from this season. It's just a little lackluster in comparison to some of the other episodes. It doesn't really add a lot to the season either. It feels kind of like filler, you know what I mean? So it's not terrible, but it's not great, as opposed to Cat Blanc, which is a great episode. It's okay, so my only problem with this episode is it's one of these tons of scenario episodes where nothing substantial becomes of it. I don't want to say nothing substantial becomes of it, but we do all this stuff, and then everything kind of goes back to normal after the episode. There's another episode like this, ephemeral or something like that in the next season, which it really plays with your emotions. You get to see what you think is these really significant events, and then they don't end up being real or don't end up mattering in the grand scheme of things. So, basically how it works is Marinette wants to give Adrian a gift for his 5th name day or something. I don't know what the fuck that is. Maybe it's a French thing. I don't know. Anyway, she has this hat thing, a beret for him, right? And it's like the same colors as his shirt. But she's in a hurry, so she like rockets up to his room as Marinette, as Ladybug, because she gets rejected as Marinette at the gate. So because Adrian's not there yet. So she's in the room as Ladybug, and she's like being a little creepy, and she's like, Adrian's pillow, Adrian's this, Adrian's foosball table, all this stuff, and she's like, you know, and then she like sets the gift down, and she like signs it from Marinette, you know, which, because she has a big problem signing these things. And Cat Noir sees her going out the window, which is kind of a problem. And he's like, wait a second, why would Ladybug leave a gift for Marinette? Could Marinette be Ladybug? And Plag's like, no, there's no way, and blah 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 and all this stuff, and then he like puts it all together. And he goes outside to see Marinette, who's got her hair down notably, by the way, which he doesn't actually see until the end of the season, but this is the first time we see that. So yeah, so like it's this whole thing where we see basically every scenario we've always fantasized about as fans, you know, play out, sort of thing. But right after that happens, Bunnix comes and is like, we gotta talk, because, like, you know, something happened that's, like, super bad mojo here, and it's fucking up the entire timeline, and things have just gotten fucking crazy out here, and the future is, like, really bad. Like, this is the end of the world kind of scenario shit, and Marinette's like, holy shit, what the fuck happened? And we see flashbacks to, stuff that happened that Marinette isn't seeing, and that's where the episode gets a little bit confusing, but on multiple rewatches you kind of understand that. So, and it's funny because a lot of this stuff actually ends up happening in season 5, which is kind of crazy. You know, it's not just really a what if. A lot of this stuff kind of does happen later on. There's a scene where Gabriel Gress is on an iPad in the bakery there, and he's like telling Marinette that he can't see Adrian. I mean, she can't see Adrian anymore. Anyway, Marinette and Adrian can't be together. He's trying to get her away from him, which is exactly what's happening in season 5 also. There's a scene, there's a couple of scenes. There's one in the rain again, where Marinette has to, like, go and tell Adrian that she can't be with him anymore, and, she's about to get akumatized because of that, because of all the negative emotion that she's feeling there. And then, Cat Noir goes and cataclysms the Akuma, and so she finds out that he's Cat Noir, and, well, he already knows that she's Ladybug, but he finds out she's Cat Noir, and then, so Hawkmoth finds out that he's Cat Noir as well, and his reaction is underwhelming, to say the least. He's just like, yes, this is great, now I can get his Miraculous, and it's like, you know, you'd think he'd have some more conflicting emotions about that. Natalie is actually pretty shocked. Like, she's the one who sees it. She's like, oh my god, your son's Cat Noir. And he's like, yes, the miraculous. And then you see this awesome scene, which actually kind of happens later on without Cat Noir, which is kind of crazy. That was somebody's kind of big complaint at the end of season 5 there. Cat Noir was in a really big part of that. But you see them in the dead wife garden tracking him down, and then he like shows Cat Noir, this is your mother, and blah blah blah, and then he's like, no, like he's like really, he gets really pissed off about this. And then eventually he gets akumatized into Cat Blanc, and then basically destroys the world. So that's pretty crazy. But he gets akumatized because he can't choose a side between Hawkmoth and Marinette after knowing that Emily is there, his mom is there, and that's why Hawkmoth is doing all the stuff that he's doing, is because he's trying to bring back Adrian's mom. So it's a really interesting scenario we don't actually get to see play out in the actual show. We still are waiting on the fallout of Adrian finding out that his mom was in this coma the whole time, and that his dad was Hawkmoth and all of that, which he's gonna have to find out in the next season, because Marinette is hiding that shit from him at this point, so... So yeah, so interesting stuff there. Lots of good, interesting stuff. And then Marinette has to go and stop Cat Blanc there. And she ends up doing it, you know, after some time. It kind of seems hopeless at a couple of points, but she ends up pulling it off and getting the timeline back together. And then she, like, as Ladybug, makes up an excuse why she's dropping off the present, even though it's not signed for Marinette anymore, so that Adrian doesn't figure it out, and blah blah blah. And so everything's kind of back to normal after that point, but it's a fun, you know, kind of episode to see. Oh, and then, like, okay, so near the beginning, though, after she drops off the present, Adrian comes out and he's like, you know, oh, I love you, Marinette, and she's like, oh, I love you too, and then I think they kiss for, like, the first time or whatever, which is crazy. Also, well, no, we'll talk about that in a bit. So, yeah, good episode. But, like, you know, everything goes back to normal, which is good, I guess, but it just feels like it doesn't really get anywhere. But it is a really good episode to kind of show what could happen if they understand each other's identities. You know, it's a what-if scenario in a sense. Alright, so Felix, the next episode, Felix, who's Adrian's cousin, and his aunt, Amelie, not Emily, Amelie, so silly, and they look just alike too, come to town to visit. Everyone is sending Adrian messages about his mom because it's been a year since she disappeared. And he's just disappeared forever, so I don't know what he knows. But it kind of sounds like he's understanding that as, like, she died, but, like, that's never explicitly said, and I don't think that's what he explicitly believes either. But he also somehow doesn't have any hope of her coming back. So it's very odd, you know? It's like, what does he know, or what does he believe? But anyway, so Felix comes there. They put all the messages together. Marinette says, I love you, and I'll always be there for you, in her message. But Felix ends up seeing the messages, and he deletes them, and pretends to be Adrian, and puts out, like, a really mean message as Adrian. So, and that, like, gets Alia, Rose, and Julika really pissed off, and then they become the something trio, the Punisher trio, I believe it is, Punishment trio, or something like that. So they're Lady Wi-Fi, Princess Fragrance, and Reflecta again. So, but they have to, like, figure out which one is Adrian and which one is Felix, because they look pretty much just alike. Which is interesting. There's also a part where Felix, like, makes the moves on Ladybug. And, like, you know, pretends like he's Adrian, and she's like, Adrian would never be so pushy as this, or whatever. So yeah, there's that, which is interesting. The whole point of the episode is he's trying to get back the rings, which the running theory, or the thing is, I don't know if it's theory anymore. I can't really remember. I haven't seen the English versions of the episodes, of the ones in season 5, where they explain all of this, but it's commonly believed that these rings are the Centimonster, you know, the Akumatai, the Amok, the object, you know, that has the Centimonster, Adrian, Felix, not Kagame's, you know, obviously she's got hers, but so that's why these are so important, even though they are family heirlooms or whatever in the Grande Vanelli family, which is like Felix's family, you know, like Amelie's family, but also Emily's family, you know, that side of the family, the mom's side of the family, rather than the Agrust side of the family. So, and then at the end of the episode, he gets that ring back, which I guess is his ring or something. And Hawkmoth, or Gabriel Agrest, you know, gets really pissed about this in the next season in one of the episodes. So we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, interesting episode. Good introduction to Felix, who's a great character in the next few seasons here. Very, very important character, at least at the end of the next season, and, you know, the end of the next season too. The entirety, I would say, of season 5 there. So cool. Good introduction episode to him. Ladybug, which is an episode I was talking about earlier. It's the episode where Lila enacts her grand plan. She puts, like, these test answers in Marinette's backpack, and a necklace in her locker, and frames her for all of this stuff, and, like, shows each and every piece of evidence that Marinette's, like, a cheater and a bad person and a thief and all this stuff. And she gets framed for all of these crimes, and then she gets expelled from school. And she keeps trying to tell people, it's Lila, I know it's fucking Lila. And everyone's like, you're just saying that because Lila hits on Adrian, and you don't like that. And it's like, no, she's saying that because Lila's a manipulative, lying bitch, you know? And Adrian tries to stand up for her at one point. It doesn't work out. And everything keeps building. She even, like, throws herself down the stairs and pretends like Marinette pushed her and stuff. You know, which obviously isn't true. Marinette didn't do any of this shit, but, you know, she's getting away with lying to people about it. And then, so Marinette almost gets akumatized. She does technically get akumatized for a second, along with her mom and somebody else too. I can't remember exactly who, but they all get akumatized, and she's about to, like, take off her earrings to give to Hawkmoth, but what snaps her out of it? Mayura has, like, she falls down because she's all sick because, you know, the power of the broken Miraculous there. So she gets off easy on that one. You know, because if Marinette gets akumatized, there's no way to save her, basically, unless somebody else takes up the mantle of Ladybug before those earrings can get to Hawkmoth, you know? Which has happened in the past, you know, but, kind of, you know, or in the future, I guess. So it's interesting. Um, but anyway, yeah, so the rest of the episode, Mayura creates a fake ladybug and sends her out there, and Cat Noir kind of falls for a lot of the stuff she's saying. She, like, is being all romantic with him and like, oh, I don't love that boy anymore. It's you who I love, Cat Noir, and blah, blah, blah. She's like, how are you falling for that? And like, all this stuff. And then you find out that the ladybug is a Senta monster. Um, and this is kind of the first time we have a sympathetic Senta monster. It's not really a monster. It's just a being, a sentient being. Um, they even get the amok object from Mayura and try to give it to Ladybug, although Mayura just snaps her fingers and she like disappears. And we're meant to really like, to feel the fact that this was like a living creature, a living person even. And she had free will with her amok object there, but Mayura snapped her out of his existence, which is basically killing a living being. So we're meant to understand that Senta monsters are a little bit more than monsters at this point. We're really meant to start thinking about that, which is definitely a setup for Adrian, Kagame, Felix, Senta monster stuff. Like down the line. So, and they're all kind of starting that here, which is interesting. And they started that a couple episodes prior too, but I can't believe that all ended up being true either, because like originally whenever they got it brought up it was kind of a far-fetched theory. It made sense, but it was just like one of those fan theories. You're like, oh, this will never happen, and it fucking happened, and I'm like, what? Like I'm like it's very obvious at this point that that's the direction they're going. So pretty cool, honestly. So Ladybug, yeah, good episode. A lot of cool little things going on in this episode. Yeah. And then at the end, Adrian gets Lila to go and tell the principal that she, like, has a disease or something that made her say all these crazy things. I don't know. I don't know how they bought that. Whatever. She like, goes back on it. And Marinette's like kind of happy about that. And she's like, you know what? Maybe there is more to you than meets the eye. And Lila's like, shut up. There, whatever. Like, kind of shit. So, yeah. So let's just talk about Chris Master, like, briefly. It's another holiday episode. Like, Santa's in it. Like, Chris, the little kid, is in it. He, like, makes toys come to life and stuff. Apparently Ladybug is the best behaved kid on Earth or something, and she can get her Christmas gift early. It's all this stuff she's saying to Chris earlier in the episode. Like, I don't know. It's really a weird episode. It's not anything special. He makes toy versions of Ladybug and Cat Noir, and she gets the giant anime sword again, like they always do. Santa Claus is in the episode again after, Santa Claus, the episode from season 2 or whatever. It's an okay episode, but it's really like one that's kind of lackluster, and I'm not always necessarily looking forward to it every time I rewatch season 3. It's one of the lower tier season 3 episodes. It's okay though. As an episode of Ladybug, the interesting thing is, it was supposed to be like a season 2 or 1 episode, if I remember correctly. And that kind of tracks. I mean, it feels more like a season 1 episode than anything, so it's okay. It's just not up to the standards of like the newer episodes, as far as I'm concerned, so. And thus, we've completed Season 3, except for the finale episodes. Alright, so let's talk about the finale episodes. So, in the finale episodes, Audrey Bourgeois and Andre Bourgeois are celebrating their 20th anniversary. So, but they're getting really mad at each other and stuff. But Marinette, Adrian, and Kagame are all having a good time together as friends. But Marinette's starting to figure out like Kagame and Adrian are like a thing, you know, it's like for reals. They like run out of the hotel there. They find the ice cream man and it's this really interesting scene where he's like, I could do these flavors for, you know, Kagame and Adrian. And he's like, or I could do these flavors for Adrian and Marinette. Or I could do the unconventional flavors, but still good flavors is what he says for Kagame and Marinette. And you're like, and Marinette doesn't even blink at that. She's like, she's actually considering this. So you're like, wow, is Marinette like into Kagame or whatever? Like, my reading of Marinette and her, I hate to say it like this, but her sexuality is that she's definitely bisexual. There's no way she's not, right? Like, I think if she wasn't so in love with Adrian, she would have definitely gone for Zoe in the later season as well. I think that definitely would have been a thing. Or Kagame in this season, you know, but she ends up kind of realizing, hey, Kagame and Adrian are the ones that need to be together. But as they're avoiding, like, the gorilla, they jump in, like, this ball pit, and Marinette, like, lets her hair down, and Adrian's like, oh, wow, you're so beautiful with your hair down, and Kagame's like, you are beautiful with your hair down, and all this stuff, and, you know, like, the overly animated podcast was like, oh, it's the throuple, you know, like, the three of them together kind of thing. And Marinette even says that later at the ice cream guy. Can't you just have a flavor that has all three of us? And it's like, wow, like, hey, you know, maybe I can go for this thing, you know? I mean, but not to be so. And then, you know, she kind of lets Adrian and Kagame be, but then she finds out this heart hunter who's, you know, Andre Bourgeois and what's her face? Audrey Bourgeois. They all have A names, except for Chloe for some reason. Become this akumatized villain called Heart Hunter, who just like goes and sucks up all the couples in love, basically. So she takes Kagame away from Adrian right as they're about to kiss, and turns her into the dragon. And Chloe sees this and gets really pissed about this. And there's also this other plot where she had to go to Master Fu, but as Ladybug, and Myra and Hawkmoth were following her the whole time. So when she takes the Dragon Miraculous to give to Kagame, they find Master Fu, and so they have him. So Hawkmoth gets the Bee Miraculous from Master Fu and goes and gives it to Chloe, or tries to hand it to Chloe, and is like, hey, you know, like, we offered you this earlier, but we're gonna offer this to you again. And she's like, he's like explaining how Ladybug has betrayed her, and she's not gonna get this any other way, basically. And she starts to agree. You see it, she's kind of struggling, but she starts to agree with how Ladybug has definitely betrayed her. And you see this as a constant theme throughout the season. So it's a good build up to this moment where she switches over. Initially, I didn't like this. I still have a little twinge of not liking this, but as I've seen the later seasons, I kind of understand that they wanted to keep Chloe bad, I guess. And if we got Zoe out of it, like, okay, I'm okay with that, because Zoe's a much better character anyway, when it comes to being a good person, so it kind of sucks that Chloe had to go back on all the nice things that she was doing, or the progress that she was making, you know? But if you really look at it, she wasn't always making that much progress. I mean, but she did, like, reject an Akuma and stuff. She did a lot of noble stuff. she always had all this faith in Ladybug, and then it got broken, you know? And I think, if anything, that's the kind of tragic villain, you know, level thing that would create a great villain. So I think that's a good concept. I think it was done well enough. It kind of sucks that we never got the Chloe redemption arc thing to stick, you know? So, but they went a different direction with it, and I like it. I think it works good. And I like her in this episode. Um, she chooses evil, you know? She goes for it. And she's like, but you have to deakumatize my parents. And he's like, you were my real plan the whole time, my queen, you know? And so she becomes Queen Bee and then Queen Wasp or whatever. Miracle Queen is what she really becomes, which is the name of the episodes, or the next episode, I think. And then the whole thing is she has... I think Hawkmoth at this point has stolen the Miracle Box from Master Fu, but he's like taken on the turtle persona again, and he's got his shield up, and Mayura is like having a Senti monster attack it, basically. So, and I think at this point it's part 2. So, oh, and at the end of part 1, Marinette like breaks down to Luca, like, I can't handle all this pressure, all this responsibility, and she's like, or he's like, you should just tell me what this is all about, or you don't have to if you don't want to. Of course she doesn't, but so that's interesting. You know, it's meant to kind of get us more to Luca. He's got this whole thing throughout the episodes, like, I'm trying to find your song, Marinette, all this stuff. So, but anyway, so part 2, Chloe sends out all these. I was gonna say these better not be over yet. Oh no. Sends out all of these bees to sting all of the people, like everyone, pretty much everyone, and basically basically she stings everyone so that she can find the miraculous holders, and then she brings all the miraculous holders to her and tries to give them all the miraculouses again, but Nino and one of the other ones can't because their miraculouses are... Oh, and Kagame can't because their miraculouses are gone or whatever, obviously, because Marinette has the dragon one, and then Master Fu has the turtle one. She tries to defeat Ladybug. Ladybug deakumatizes her, but Hawkmoth like reakumatizes her. And there's this whole scene where she's like trying to grab the Akuma. I always thought that was kind of over the top. I didn't really like that. She tries to put on all the miraculouses, and Hawkmoth's like, yes, this will be the best. And then she doesn't know all the commands to like get the miraculouses to, or the Kwamis to do what she wants. It's kind of funny. And eventually, in a move of desperation, Master Fu relinquishes the guardianship to Marinette, and he loses all of his memories. But it ends up getting Chloe defeated because she can't use any of her powers, essentially. So, and then there's a nice scene at the end. There's been this narration throughout the episodes about Marinette and all of that, reading this letter that Master Fu left her for after he lost his memory and whatnot. So, yeah, there's this nice scene at the end. I mean, he doesn't remember who they are, but Marinette helps him find Marion again, and then they go off and be together, and he has this moment where he's like, I don't know who you are, but I love you, to Marion. And she's like, oh, you should always follow your heart, and all this stuff. It's a nice closing thing, and he writes a really heartfelt like letter to her and stuff. It's kind of meant to be the end of Master Fu. He does come back pretty early on in the next season, but, you know, he's not really in a lot after that. So it's kind of the end to his character arc. Um, Even Waze is like, oh my god, goodbye, master, and it's just kind of like a really sad moment and stuff. Um, but yeah, that's the ending of season 3. Oh, except for there's a stinger at the end where he's like, Hawkmoth's like, oh, you did all of this for nothing, and she's like, not for nothing. I got the grimoire on this guy's tablet here, so we can fix the peacock miraculous. And you see at the end he's like, yes, it's fixed or whatever. So there's that for the next season there. Little stinger, little teaser for the next season there. Um, yeah. So that's season 3 of Miraculous Ladybug. A good season overall. I don't think it's Miraculous Ladybug's best season or anything, but there are a lot of good episodes, a lot of great episodes, a lot of episodes building on the lore and expanding upon things, and a lot of episodes teasing a lot of things, which is where it gets kind of shaky ground of like, is this good or is this just like, aha, look, we're teasing you, you know? So, I don't know. I'm just cheesing you. That's what I was thinking of. So, anyway, they're just teasing us for the future of stuff that's gonna happen. It's like a little teaser, and it's never fun to get teased for stuff that wasn't gonna happen for another 2 or 3 years anyway. So it's like, I don't know. But I like season 3 overall. I think it's great. Is it simply the best? Not really, but it's still a great season of Miraculous Ladybug, and I definitely like it. So, yeah. Hey, I don't know what else to say. That's about it. God damn, this has been like 2 hours long. So, stick around, subscribe to join the Bad Girl Coven. I'm your Coven leader, Emily, saying magic comes from the heart, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Miraculous Ladybug!